All right, here we go. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Today's Weather Tonight. Um, Here, as usual, I am your comedian slash meteorologist for the evening, Cloud Hudson, and I will be bringing you all of tonight's top weather stories. Let's go ahead and dive right into this. We've had quite an eventful week. I'm not even going to go into what made it so eventful for me personally. Just a lot of same old bullshit. Okay, let's go through our headlines. Weather story headlines. Southern California has reached the new phase of its wildfire battle in that it is now dealing with the possible effects of widespread rain showers on top of recently burned areas. Now, the rain comes as a relief to firefighters, but also as a new potential type of danger for residents still in the area, as recently burned areas can be full of loose, dry particulates that are become toxic or acidic or otherwise harmful when put into solution, when water comes into contact with it. These toxic sludge flows could develop from any ash pile, but fresh burn scar areas are at a greater risk of actually doing damage from physically moving themselves. Mudslides. It's not just that this ashy water is potentially toxic, it's that this destabilized soil is at much greater risk of moving. So not only do you have to wear, like hazmat suits and respirators when going into recently burned areas, because there's no telling what kind of stuff caught on fire and burned that you shouldn't be breathing in. There's also the risk that the destabilized ash will just completely wipe out another structure that didn't get burned down. So there's all kinds of risks associated with this type of wildfire mitigation, but on the bright side, it does help with the wildfires. They have not been completely extinguished. There's been tremendous progress made. We're at 90% containment of the Palisades fire, 98% containment of the Eaton fire. The Hughes fire is now at 95%. And the Border 2 fire, that is the second border fire, has now been at 40% containment. And that one just started like 3 days ago on the 23rd. So that's pretty good. The water management practices of the state of California might be overruled if, according to the new president, the new old president who visited the region, he's being pretty confusing, saying that FEMA doesn't do enough, and then also saying we need to do more to respond to natural disasters. So quite confusing there. But I guess he thinks that the liberals in California are trying to save water, and that's what's causing the fires. That's not exactly how it goes. Lots of places will be at risk of wildfires in the upcoming years. Everywhere in the west, the western Intermountain western area and the plains is at risk of wildfires. I think places with a more arid climate are more at risk, but as desertification happens to many places that were not always arid, such as like Oklahoma, which should be a prairie state, should be a prairie environment, is now becoming a desert. It'll be more at risk of wildfires. So how we deal with the wildfires in California right now is going to set the tone for how we deal with wildfires upcoming. So we also had a road collapse in Indonesia over due to extreme rains in East Java, on the island of East Java in the nation of Indonesia. There was an area where a road is really close to a river, and the following torrential rainfall on January 23rd, there was, let's see, what did it say? This area is prone to landslides because it is in a river fault area. What does that mean? I'm not really sure what they mean by river fault, but it caused major traffic delays. This area has already been suffering displacement due to natural causes, not natural causes, but due to weather events. 11,000 residents have been displaced after storms destroyed bridges, houses, vehicles, and public facilities on January 17th. A separate incident on January 18th, 3 houses collapsed due to erosion by prolonged rainfall. Neighboring countries have been experiencing monsoon season, which brings high temperatures and intense afternoon rainstorms. So this has caused flash floods and landslides throughout the region, but it is just part of monsoon season. But still, it's not every monsoon season that this road collapses. So that's a unique headline. And in other news, where we are used to water moving, we have water frozen here in Niagara Falls, a frozen Niagara Falls. It's beautifully caught on camera here. This was on January 22nd. And you see the ice, that pancake ice on top of the river there. The falls are behind the mist back there. And oh, this was my next headline anyway. Or this was one of my headlines I'm going to get to soon at the end. Let's just go to that one now. Investigation is ongoing behind over 100 dolphins in Somalia. This is weird because more than 100 dead dolphins washed up on the coast of Somalia in the semi-autonomous Puntland region on January 23rd. This is weird because the fisheries manager said that the cause of death is yet to be determined and no other types of fish have washed up dead. So this had to be something specific to the dolphins. They also didn't exhibit any signs of net-related causes of death or fishing-related causes of death. So it's not like they just ran into dolphin unsafe fishing equipment. It is very possible that it's an unknown cause of death, but it is something that applied specifically to these 100 dolphins off the coast of Somalia. So I'm curious what that would be. I remember there being an earthquake in that area in the middle of the ocean off the coast of Somalia back on the 22nd and 23rd. Maybe there was a little earth burp and there was some sort of something came out from underneath and killed all the dolphins. I don't know. Just making up stuff at this point. Okay. Stunning green aurora seen over Reykjavik in Iceland. Iona Bryson has got some beautiful, stunning footage of the aurora borealis over the northern lights over the capital city of Iceland in Reykjavik. That's gorgeous with the planets and stars visible in the background as well. Really pretty green aurora seen here. Just like the color of my hair almost. looks just like this color, honestly. Beautiful. Beautiful. You can see that like post-stratospheric air that's like 60 miles or more up. This is from oxygen, atomic oxygen, not molecular oxygen that we would be able to breathe, but atomic oxygen that can be ionized by the incoming solar radiation, getting energized enough to emit a photon from electrons jumping electron shells inside of the atom. This phenomenon can happen to oxygen really far out with enough time that it stays in that green emitting a photon length of time before interacting with something else. Okay, this is because when atomic oxygen is excited by a high energy particle, it doesn't shed that energy right away, in contrast with a gas like sodium or neon, which returns to its ground state in a millionth of a second. Atomic oxygen takes 3/4 of a second to calm down from being excited. So once it is in the excited state, it remains there a little bit longer. If during that time, however, the excited oxygen atom has a collision or chemical reaction with other elements, it could shed that energy before it has a chance to release it as a photon. This happens at lower altitudes, so that's why this green color doesn't happen as much at lower altitudes. It's also why those green ribbons typically have a sharp edge at the bottom. There's like a gradient at the top of them of when we start seeing this, where we're going into more atomic oxygen available in the stratosphere to have this reaction. And then there's a sharp drop off of now the atmosphere is too dense and all the available oxygen atoms are colliding with other particles too often to have this photon emission. The red auroras happen either from nitrogen or from oxygen's second emission. The oxygen has more time to recover after emitting a green photon, and there's still energy tied up in the excited electrons of these oxygen atoms, and as long as they don't collide with other atmospheric atoms or molecules, after a couple of minutes, they can emit another burst of red light and finally return to their ground state. So really high up above, like in and above the green aurora area, you could get red aurora at the same time from that second wave of photon emission from oxygen molecules. So there's some different reasons that different colors happen at different levels of the atmosphere, and that's always really fun to figure out, and it's a great illustration of the gradients of the atmosphere. Cool story here, just talking about potential lost civilizations, lost continents, scientific facts, and strange legends about lost continents. This seems like my nightmare. I would never want to deep sea dive in a lost continent. That sounds like the most fucking haunted place you could ever be. Legends of lost continents. So they talk about Atlantis and how it possibly was a lost continent between Africa and America. Old maps place this area as being named Atlantis, and ancient Greek historians and thinkers had somewhere beyond the Strait of Gibraltar as where Atlantis is. I've heard hypotheses about it being the Caribbean, possibly the Minoan civilization of Santorini, possibly even part of the Sahara Desert in Africa. I've heard that. Now, that is the one everyone probably knows about, Atlantis. The potentially lost mythical continent that you may have heard of, but is more rare to have heard of, is Lemuria. Lemuria is the lost continent that is between the that would be between Madagascar, India, and Australia. And this was hypothesized because this mythical continent was hypothesized because of the similarity in flora, fauna, and fossils between India, Madagascar, and Australia. Now, that was proposed in the 19th century, and around that time, the mother of theosophy, Helena Blavatsky, added her own channeled interpretation of this potential continent. She added mythological elements, describing this as the birthplace of an ancient, highly developed civilization that predated Atlantis. This is the civilization Atlantis was formed after, kind of stole their technology a little bit, but not really stole. Lemuria was, according to Blavatsky, was the place in time where people didn't have to use the same type of communication that we have to use today. Telepathy and inherent knowledge of the mineral, earth, animal, and plant kingdoms were more readily available to what was then human consciousness. This is like really advanced New Age philosophy kind of stuff. So that is one reason you might have heard of Lemuria, is because people who now talk about Atlantis a lot will probably try to talk to you about Lemuria. Now, one that you have to go even further into New Age stuff to learn about is Mu. Now, some people will say that Mu is just another term for Lemuria, and Lemuria is a physical place that got construed with, like, the scientific Lemuria being between those three areas that all had lemurs. That's the name of Lemuria, is it comes from lemurs, all being naturally found in Madagascar, India, and Australia. They're only on Madagascar now, living current day. Mu is the mythical supercontinent, or not supercontinent, that according to this one guy, this one English man, James Churchward, describes Mu as the cradle of human civilizations in his books. Now, this is also mentioned in Theosophy. Things get a little dicey in Theosophy when you start talking about the beginning of civilization and the evolution of humans and human consciousness, because there is a weird racial undertone to their explanation of human evolution. So just take all of what you are going to read somewhere about Mu and Lemuria with that big grain of salt, as they are probably going to refer to people as being a less developed stage of humanity if they're from there, which is really where I'm not going on this tangent, but that's where I differ in, I don't like that part. Anyway, this is the area that unites all these Pacific islands from Hawaii over to, like, the Comedic Islands, all the way over to Fiji, to the Easter Islands. This is one proposed continent that would explain why so many Polynesian people and Pacific Islanders and even indigenous Americans have similar creation myths and similar cultural practices and cultural knowledges and technological histories, timescales. and seem to have had contact with each other in times in history, which, according to dominant Western narratives, they should not have had contact in. That is, of course, because dominant Western narratives want you to believe that seafaring peoples and like seafaring cultures were not around before Europeans became seafaring cultures. But that is pretty much most likely not the case. The case is more likely that people in the Pacific Islands just were better at sea navigation, had more advanced technology, and were exploring the Americas well before Europeans did it. And so that would explain why everybody's got some cultural exchange of knowledge. Now, Zealand is one that we have talked about on this show before that I would like to bring up because of, I brought this whole story into today's show because of this one. Zealand is the only one of the lost continents mentioned in this article, they didn't say that, whose existence is confirmed by modern science. I don't know about that, but I do think Lemuria is kind of confirmed by modern science as a region of Gondwana. When we were in Gondwana land was a pre-Pangea. No, it wasn't pre-Pangea. It's like Pangea. It's a supercontinent formation, but it's not the same supercontinent formation as Pangea. There's a lot of different supercontinent formations that happened in geological history as we understand it right now. Zealand is the only one of the blah, 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 blah. Area is about 4.9 million square kilometers. And it is the bottom of this wave-shaped plate that I always refer to. I call this the wave-shaped plate, this little part of the Indo-Australian plate, because I think that this part that is not highlighted as part of Zealand looks like a crashing ocean wave. And this part is like kind of a wave in wanting to crash formation, kind of the upwelling and backswell of the wave. This hypothesis proposes that all of this area would be its own separate continent. Geological processes caused it to gradually sink underwater, leaving only small areas of land uncovered. This discovery proves that our planet may still hide many undiscovered secrets. So the last one is Hyperborea, which again is actually a time period referred to in Theosophy and referenced by the anthroposophists as well. But in the work of Blavatsky and Rudolf Steiner, the Hyperborean epoch is before the Lemurian epoch, which is the time of Mu, which is before the Atlantean epoch. And we are now in the post-Atlantean epoch and not really even out of their devilry yet, allegedly, according to those Theosophists and anthroposophists. The Hyperborean epoch is before we even condensed into physical matter. So it is a little bit funny for them to call Hyperborea a place in the physical world, but it is, according to Herodotus and Pliny the Elder, Greek authors, it's a mythical continent, so mythical even to the Greeks, that was beyond the northern, in so far in the north that it was beyond the Arctic Circle, home to people who lived in harmony with nature. Hyperboreans were considered long-lived, never sick, and never suffering. The land was described as a place of eternal summer and fertility where the sun never set. Some researchers associate Hyperborea with the Arctic territories, while others consider it a purely mythological fiction. Today, this mysterious continent is the source of inspiration for mythologists, writers, and seekers of lost history. So this is like one map that kind of refers to this as Hyperborea. Hyperborea could just mean beyond the boreal forests, any area beyond the boreal latitude. So it's it's kind of a lost continent, but not really. This map in particular has been referenced by a lot of Hollow Earth people, people who believe that at the very top of the world, at the North Pole and at the South Pole, the Earth has a hole through it, and there's a donut. It's actually a donut shaped, and that the Earth is actually hollow. Some people think it's hollow like a shell. Some people think it's hollow like a torus shape, like a donut, basically a donut shaped Earth, and that the unique inward curvature of the North and Southern Pole, like the inside surface of the Earth, that is a place that would always be temperate and have like a peaceful, peace-loving, and never knowing strife people would live there, because you would always be getting some sort of sun and always be getting some sort of temperature regulation. There's a lot of people who believe in a flat Earth mostly don't believe that it's flat like a piece of paper. They believe that it is flat as in it's not a sphere that is solid all the way through. And they will eventually reveal to you that they believe in a hollow Earth rather than a flat one. My favorite argument against flat Earth is, what about mountains? Okay. So, hello, everyone. I'm finally joining the chat after going off on the weirdest tangent possible. I don't know if you can see it. I haven't washed my hair. Like, okay, not like I haven't washed my hair, but it hasn't lightened up a bit. I just didn't do like a color correction to the camera today before filming. I just didn't have the time to fix the color resolution, so it looks a little lighter, not as saturated. I'm glad you like this kind of stuff. You've seen it here in Vermont. What have you seen? Clouds, I was wondering, do you ever rain? Yes, often. I cried just today, in fact. It's healthy and normal. European always sounded funny to me anyway. Yes, European. You are a peon. Cream filled donut, yums. I don't like the filled donuts as much. I guess that's what the standard theory of Earth as a oblate spheroid would be. It would be a cream filled donut, because really there are shells of the Earth around a gooey center. So it is donut shaped, but not like Homer Simpson donut, more like jelly donut. And the jelly is hot magma and a solid ball of iron rotating on the inside that creates a magnetic field protecting us from solar wind outside. Oh, the green northern lights is what you thought was cool. Cool. I like that stuff too. I'm glad that you guys are down for that. Well, thanks for coming on this little adventure through 5 different fictional continents with me. Southern Taiwan rocked by aftershocks following Taiwan quake. Well, let's go ahead and get to that. The 6.4 we did talk about last week, but let's go ahead and look at our earthquakes as told by Earthquake 3D. So thirsty. Okay, I want to get these back to like maybe a little more like only today. Okay, so we got a triumvirate of 4 point somethings here in the Arabian Peninsula, really kind of tracing in the Arabian Peninsula. Right there again, between Saudi Arabia and Somalia, we had a 4.6 in the Gulf of Aden today, in fact. Then we had a 4.8 at just barely on the Iraq side, or the Iraq side of the Iran-Iraq border. 4.8 at 14 kilometers depth. We had a 4.4 at 33 kilometers depth down here in southern Iran as well. Nothing showing up from East Africa lately. Weird that I have to go so far back for that. Let's see. Down here in the South Sandwich Islands, there was a 5.1 at 115 kilometers depth and a 4.2 at 34 in central Chile. We had a 4.5 keeping our momentum connected through here in, that's up in Colombia. Then we had, that was at 163 kilometers depth. Then around Hispaniola and Puerto Rico, we had 4.1 at 29 kilometers depth, a 3.9 at 127 kilometers depth. There was also a 3.6 at 106, and a smattering of mid-range 2s at pretty shallow depths as well. Then we had our West Texas stack of quakes as usual. Everything in the Intermountain West has kind of quieted down. We're back to just having our Southern California quakes as usual. And our new usual is to see these quakes over in near Carson City, like somewhere between Las Vegas and Carson City, Nevada. Like it's really outside of Carson City. This little stack that we keep seeing just outside of Carson City, these quakes. And then this stack is at the geysers, included a 2.5 today. There was a 4.0 off the coast of Northern California that was at 7 kilometers depth. And in the Juan de Fuca fracture zone 2. Is that where it was? Yeah, pretty much right there. Then up in Canada, there was a 4.2 at 55 kilometers northwest of Banff, Canada. I don't know why it said that when it's so close to Calgary. Really close to, well, I guess it's closer to Banff. Banff National Park, just up the Cascade Mountains in Banff National Park, actually, itself. That was at what depth? That was at 5 kilometers depth. Then we had both deep and shallow quakes over here we had surface quakes, in fact, in Alaska. Then we had a 2.2 at 92, a 2.4 at 6. There was, some of this surface stuff? Yeah, surface 1, surface, and we had a 100-kilometer depth 2. There was a big 5.6 out here on the Aleutian Island chain. That's at 75 kilometers depth at Unalaska, my favorite place. It's so un-Alaska. This is at Alaska Maritime National Wildlife Refuge in the Shaler Mountains. This was onshore, actually, right close to Mount Okmok. That looks like Okmok caldera. That is gotta be a volcano. Yeah, Tulik volcano. So this is near a volcano. We'll have to keep an eye out for, I guess, I don't think that is an active volcano right now, but it is an earthquake near there. Let's see. Next, we move on to, let's check out Hawaii. We had a 2.7 at 3 kilometers depth, then a 2.2 at 2, and a 2.4 at 0 kilometers depth. So all just kind of far away from each other too on the Big Island. There was a 5.3 over here on the Kamchatka Peninsula in Russia. There is something happened. Hold on. I have a little space heater and it doesn't want to turn on right now, and that's weird. Quite odd. Maybe this is why I found it in a dumpster. Okay, moving on. Maybe it just craps out sometimes. We had a 4.4 off the coast of Japan. That was at 66 kilometers depth. There's a 4.9 over here on the tip of the Marianas Trench on the Philippine plate, the diamond-shaped plate right there. There was a 4.4 as we start to get into the volcano islands, Osaka area of southern Japan. We got 4.7 at 45 kilometers depth in those volcano islands. And then we get to all these aftershocks around Taiwan. We've got a 4.7, a 5.0, 4.4, 4.2, and 4.2, all happening, rocking around the Taiwanese island there. We've got a 4.7 in right at the southern tip of the Philippines. There was at 135 kilometers depth. There was a 4.8 right in the middle of Papua New Guinea, and a 5.0 as we get out onto, which island chain is this? The Solomon Islands. I'm going to remember the different island chain names eventually, and then I'm going to learn their real names and not their colonized names. The 4.6 here at 86 kilometer depth was right between the islands of Honiara and what is this one? It's right on this island that also doesn't. Ngela Pile. Nggela space Pile. Right there. In however you say that island. Ngela Pile Island. Here in the Solomon Sea. Okay. Then we move on to, there was a 4.8 here at the Loyalty Islands. That can't be their real name. Nobody names themselves Loyalty. That sounds like a punishment name. Okay, it's close to exactly between New Caledonia and Fiji. New Caledonia is also not its real name. This is really like right at the crest. This is kind of like the if you see me down in the other window, it's at like the place where the surface of the water would be if we're looking sideways at this as a crashing ocean wave, with Fiji being the like breaking wave part. This would be where the big wave starts to lift out of the surface of the ocean, right here at that inflection point of that wave, kind of like at the tip of where the Vanuatu Islands are pointing at. Okay, then down here south of Australia, right on the Australian and Antarctic plate boundary, we had a 4.9 at 10 kilometers depth. That about wraps up our earthquake roundup. Now let's go to, I didn't do our volcanoes. Let's take a look at our volcanoes. Missed you guys. I'm sorry I haven't been here. I've been away Have you seen those videos of simulations of falling into planets in the solar system? I think you'd enjoy them. That sounds fun. I like that. I like the idea of that. That sounds really cool. Send me a link, Coble. I made 1,100 dumpster diving last year. Don't say that. You have to report it on your taxes if it's more than $600. Remember that, kids. Nobody's ever going to get me. I'll never make more than $600 at a single job. No, I'm just kidding. That's what I have real jobs for, is to pay taxes. I have to, yeah, because I just love paying taxes. I just don't. Okay. I do actually pay my taxes. Don't worry, guys. Don't report me either, but don't worry. Let's look at what are our big headlines been. Let's see. Today, it's today's weather tonight. Sakurajima volcano had all these plumes of ash going off of it. We have, ooh, look at the glow accompanying the pause at the Halemaumau crater at Kilauea's eruption. And Reventador volcano, couldn't really tell the difference between the clouds and the volcanic ash there. Have we got a write-up about, okay, Merapi's going off. Kilauea eruption has come to a pause on January 25th, 2025, as lava flows from the north vent ceased. Episode 6, which began at 11:28 p.m. on January 24th. Man, so I was gone and we missed a whole other eruption cycle. Great. I was only gone for 3 days. Okay. Lasted just over 13 hours. During this time, lava fountains gradually diminished throughout the morning, eventually covering nearly half of Halemaumau crater's floor before the eruption paused. Seismic tremors subsided and deflationary tilt halted around noon, approximately 30 minutes prior to the pause. The tilt meter at Uakahuna recorded about 3 microradians of deflation during episode 6, similar to episode 5. By 1 p.m. Hawaiian Standard Time, the instrument appeared to capture the beginning of inflationary tilt. So that means that we are getting ready for episode 7 of our latest Kilauea eruption series, which has been the latest in our cyclical volcanic eruptions. I'm very excited about this series. Lots of data we're getting out of this. Popo continues to erupt. So does Santiaguito in Guatemala. Nevado del Ruiz has dissipated. Recent volcanic ash plume rose to 14,000 feet out of Reventador in Ecuador. We're looking at the same 37 active volcanoes that we're always looking at. It's just exciting to see that Kilauea's recent eruption happened and came to a pause. It's always good to keep an eye on Kilauea. Okay, now let's go to our atmosphere. And we have a big shakeup in our atmosphere from our last pattern, our last most dominant pattern, as the area that was on fire in Southern California, just the whole state in fuego, has now become the site of a stalling out cutoff low in and around the Los Angeles area. So everywhere from Santa Maria to San Diego is experiencing some relatively consistent rainfall. It's kind of doing the sit and spin thing. Do you guys remember that toy as a kid, the sit and spin? That's what this is doing. Where did all of you go? There's only one person left. Oh my God. That's such a bummer. Oh, that is a great find. That's a great find. Okay. So down here that's what I've been saying, mudslides. we've got recently burned areas in LA, and we've got a lot of consistent rainfall. Now, that slow soaking rain is better than one big dumping of rain, but it's still not ideal because all that burn scarred land that doesn't have plants to hold the soil is going to wash away. So, this is one thing that people who say, like, you're putting plants over people when you're conserving water for planting, forget, is that people can't live in an environment that has not been stabilized or terraformed by plants. You have to have plant life before you can have people life. Otherwise, we'd all be living in the middle of the desert, the Saharan desert, the absolute sand dunes of a desert area. You need just like even a scrap of brush out there to give you some sort of tinder to cook your fire, to give you some sort of stabilization for the earth, for the soil to like live in. You need plants to live, not just to eat them, but you need plants to keep the soil in place. And in a wildfire, the plants get burned down. Their subterranean parts, their roots might still be there, but they might also get burned out too. So you could wash away really easily. No issues right now with flash flooding. No warnings or hazards being issued there. But that is just as this cutoff low sits and spins. So we are waiting for that to become a problem, basically. We've also got this low hanging out above northern Arizona. And Flagstaff, I noticed earlier today, is really low on its average annual snowfall. They've gotten kind of like a dearth of precipitation there. Yeah, it will grow back, just not fast enough to prevent a mudslide. And over here on the other end of this, what is a warm front here, then becomes a stationary front, then a cold front, then another stationary front, is a nice sliding along the stationary front of moisture. All this Gulf moisture is getting sucked up from the Gulf of Mexico, and it still says Gulf of Mexico on here, so I'm going to keep calling it Gulf of Mexico. And you know what? I'm going to keep calling it the Gulf of Moisture instead of the Gulf of Mexico or America, because it should be called the Gulf of Moisture, because it is a gulf that provides moisture to the southeast. So I'm going to call it what I call it naturally, which is the Gulf of Moisture. The Gulf of Moisture is sending moisture through Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia and Tennessee into the Carolinas. Now, overnight tonight, we are probably going to see some moisture settling in, maybe bringing with it just a little bit of evaporative cooling, but probably more warm air on this side of the front as well, because we're on the warm side of the stationary front. The cold side back here is these masses are scooching next to each other, which is causing all that condensation. The ash will be fertilizer, but the burned construction materials from houses will be anti-fertilizer. So another great reason to build your home out of mud and straw. I know the Three Little Pigs did not address the fire issue. They only addressed the wind issue in their evaluation of construction materials. But the Three Little Pigs definitely overlooked the straw cob clay paint house method. They overlooked combining the materials. The Three Little Pigs should have worked together to combine their straw and mud and brick and all their stone. They should have combined all their materials to make one house out of many materials. That would have been more fireproof, windproof, big bad wolf proof. Yeah, the building materials are going to be toxic. The ash is probably going to provide some very essential nutrients, and then others in very too much excess. You don't put ash or biochar on just any part of your garden. Some parts need it and some parts don't. And the twigs that are charred could act as nutrient batteries, but also they have to be charged up with the nutrients first. So first, the charcoal is going to soak up all the nutrients in the area, and then it will act as a battery, slowly dispersing the nutrients into the area. So it's kind of a good thing and a bad thing. Okay, now let's go over back to weather. Up here, we've got the first of 3 clippers. A triple clipper forecast is coming to upstate New York. We've got, regular type of lake effect snow over here. But this is the setup for the clippers, where they're getting these really deep or really steep, shallow inflections in the waveform. So really smushed down amplitude, really wide wavelength of like this, from this low point to this low point. They're going to be negatively tilted troughs moving very rapidly through the region. So Lake Ontario and Lake Erie are going to provide a lot of moisture for upstate New York, Vermont, the snowbelt regions. You're going to get, and depending on the angle of the wind, that's going to determine what lines are drawn in the snow accumulation. You use a 20-year-old wood stove, New York State hemp farm. I wish that was my life. That sounds cool. I would love to have a wood stove on a farm. That sounds ideal. I would love to build a house out of hempcrete. That seems like a very durable material, very fireproof as well. All right, let's look at our observations. Observed precipitation for the past 3 days, maybe. Looking pretty dry other than in the lake effect snow areas and the Intermountain West areas. But look at California getting in on the action there. Getting up to an inch of precipitation in some areas of California. And over the past week, we had quite a bit of precipitation, but 24-hour analysis shows that California, Colorado, Utah, Nevada, and parts of Wyoming, as well as Michigan, have been the real winners when it comes to precipitation. Now, our observed temperatures show that we are getting a slight warm up. We see that, well, not really for California. They've felt a bit of a cool down, but at least the deep south, the Gulf South, has gotten above freezing, enough to melt all that 8 inches of snow that they got in New Orleans, and really doing a good, thorough soaking melt throughout the Gulf states. Now, we do still have a decent freezing line draped across the middle of the country, everywhere north of it being pretty well into the 20s. But it's been downright pleasant in places of regions of the Southeast, like where I live, where we've had, the 40s is feeling like the 70s for us right now. Compared to our single digit and sub-zero wind chills, we feel like we're in paradise with 40 degrees here. So it's great. We use ash, 20 years old, from the wood stove in New York on the hemp farm in the holes. Oh, Okay, that's genius. That is brilliant. That is a really good way to do it. 18 degrees Fahrenheit in southern Vermont, snow on Tuesday. Yes, I would say snow is likely on Tuesday. Let's look at your forecast because we've got winter storm severity index looking likely for Vermont 3 days out. 2 days out, also looking very possible for the higher elevations in Vermont. Even 1 day out, we have a slight chance of mountain snow. But throughout the next 3 days, you are almost certainly going to get some form of snow here in the tri-state area of southwestern Vermont. Even in the higher elevations in California and Arizona, they're looking at some winter storm severity index into the moderate to major storm categories. Now, our quantitative precipitation forecast is in 24 hours looking pretty focused through the deep south and Southern California. Over the next 48 hours, it starts to creep into that Clipper section of the Northeast. Not really increasing any over that third day. Then we are about to get more and more rainfall. By the time it's a whole week out, everyone in the eastern United States is looking at some decent rainfall. So hopefully we are also about to get a big warm up because about 5 days out, our max temps look like they could be getting into the 80s in Florida. We could be only down in the 40s as our low temps, and that has been our high temps this week. So yellow back on the winter storm severity index. That means or yellow in this quantitative precipitation forecast means 4 inches or above, but back in the winter storm severity index, yellow means a minor chance of severe winter storm. The winter storm impacts are what are rated here. So it's not saying necessarily how much winter storming you're going to get. It's going to be the impacts of the storms that are rated here. So you're likely to have a more impactful storm. Blue means you're going to get that storm, but will it be as disturbing? No, not really as disturbing to the norm. Now we do actually have a flood watch issued in some small parts of LA County in Southern California. We've also got lots of freeze watches, winter weather watches, and winter weather advisories there. Warnings. We also have a blizzard warning somewhere. Where is that blizzard warning? I can't even see where there is a blizzard warning on the map, but it says there is one highlighted. So I would guess that it is somewhere in either very high mountains in California or a very teeny tiny section right on shore of the Big Clipper. We also have high wind warnings up here, so it'd probably be more likely to be issued up here near Watertown, New York, or somewhere like that, somewhere between Syracuse and Watertown. We've got, I also don't see where we've got our flood warnings, but that doesn't mean they're not there. Freeze warnings, as well as freeze watches now being issued, and high wind watches, warnings, and wind advisories blanket the area. Let's see now. Our outlooks, this is where we are looking happier because it looks like there is a brief warm-up. That warm-up accompanied by relatively dry temperatures or dry conditions, but possibly some precipitation included there. So we might even see some warm rain instead of snow soon, which is, I love that. I need to get to the beach soon. I really have been missing, like warm weather. I want to go to somewhere beachy very soon. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is go to the Schumann resonances because they have been acting up. At least the last times I was looking at them, we had elevated Schumann activity. Yeah, okay, so through the 25th, we had elevated Schumann resonance activity. And then the 26th and 27th, we also went back down to pretty quiet conditions. Sub mode 1, we had some like little noise at this band of like 5 hertz. I wonder what that is. We also had like a little anomaly there where it's one frequency or one time signature. Those straight lines make more sense. But when the frequency power density is varying with time such that it draws little curves in this, that's where we notice something interesting sounding like a voice talking to the Earth on Earth scales. So the Earth itself would be able to hear it, but not us. Let's look at our magnetosphere. Magnetosphere, let's just take a look at your beautiful videos. These aren't videos, they're simulations, but man, you can see the radiation disks. Radiation fields around the Earth are really wide, like really not concise, very, very big. Rotating really far out. Sphere of influence is really wide there. And you can see that in the density model too. Like, wow, look how large that sphere of influence for the Earth is right now. That's crazy. It's really loose, spread out. Like, it's dense, but it's very large. Really interesting to see such a huge aura around the Earth. I wonder what the size of those layers of the magnetosphere mean. I don't know. Is a sand pit across the street. I can build you a beach in Vermont. Oh, that's nice of you. Thank you. I would love to see snow at the beach. When I didn't realize I wanted to see that so badly until I saw that, oh, and our pressure is non-existent, almost non-existent. That's crazy. The size is so large that our pressure doesn't even show up for a little bit. Like, we're so zoomed out that we barely even see blips on the pressure screen. That's crazy. Let's take a look at our solar weather from that then. Woo, we had a lot of solar weather. We had a lot of coronal mass ejections. On the 24th, we had so many. We had 28 to 41. So that's like 1, 2, 3, 10, 13, 14. 14 coronal mass ejections on the 24th, one of which was a partial halo type 2. Part of this coronal mass ejection could have gone Earth directed. Then on the 25th, we went from 42 to 50. That's 9 coronal mass ejections. And then on the 26th, we went from 51 to 57. That's 7 coronal mass ejections. And then on the 27th, we've already had 1. So one of these looked really fast. Don't really see where it was, but it was a very fast one. Okay, let's see the latest solar flares. Currently no noteworthy space weather. Thank you very much. The 25th, we had an M2.7. Nothing super exciting there. We have been back into those. That was weird. You pulled out my cards the other night. That's exactly me. Magician is as good as his tools. Yeah, I mean, I pull cards for our collective. Like, I don't do it on accident. If it resonates with you, it's because we're tuned into the same energy that I'm pulling for. So I'm glad that it resonated. We are saying goodbye to a lot of active sunspot regions. We've got 3974 about to rotate onto Earth-facing view. But right now, the only big deal we've got is this big coronal hole facing us about to rotate in. Our far side does have some activity, but so it looks like that we will be getting some new major players rotating into Earth-facing view soon. You can kind of see that on the helioseismogram there. Let's take a look at the SDO. Let's see what some of this has been looking like. In 193 angstroms. That's what we got. Ringworm. Oh, and it launched. Look at that. Look, watch this ringworm launch. Filament launch. Filament plasma. Ooh. Ooh. Pew. Goes. Pew. You see the ripple effect. It's spreading out, and then in its wake, these other little plumes kind of ripple across and form their new magnetic dynamic. Let's watch that on the composite imagery. Watch it again. That's really cool. It's like a slingshot just being released. And you can see it ripple in different wavelengths happening at slightly different speeds. And the absence of certain wavelengths in certain places. Really cool. And you can see this prominence on the edge where the active sunspot regions are leaving here and really active sunspot regions are coming in here. It means we're in a little bit of a lull, but we are gonna get some good stuff. I know, isn't that cool? Okay, so here is probably what we're modeling for that. I mean, really for this weekend, the 25th and 26th, this is what we were experiencing over the past few days. This double whammy of coronal mass ejections from earlier on the 23rd. After that, we're going to experience, that is, I think, that little plasma ejection that we got. Really interesting. Let's go to the auroral activity. Take a look at what our KP index ended up being like over the past few days. Yeah, so we didn't have that high of a planetary K index. Really not much of a geomagnetic storm to speak of there. Our disturbance storm time index was pretty low. We did experience some little bits of high density. Whoa, we went all the way up to 96 or 76.9 plasma per centimeter, cubic centimeter. That's really high density. We also experienced a peak at 22 and a peak at 32. That is probably those big coronal mass ejection pieces that we experienced. So that extremely high density came at 5 UTC January 27th. It is currently in UTC time. What's its current? Oh, I can look on the same graph. We're currently at 6 UTC. So about an hour ago. How long have I been streaming? Okay. Right when I started streaming, right when I began this stream, we had a huge plasma density wave hit the Earth. No coincidences. Yes, there are coincidences. They are co-occurring incidences. That's what coincidence means. You got plenty of material to build a hemp house in New York. That's cool. You go get the hemp herds from the storks, mix lime and sand. I got everything. I just don't have the labor. I will do it. Now, I don't know that you're not going to kidnap and kill me yet. Still not sure about that. But, you know, I really do just need the land and the materials, and then I would totally build a house. I would totally build many houses, in fact, if I just had the material and land. I'd love to do that. Okay. So we got the moon in Capricorn at 9 degrees, about to oppose Mars in Cancer at 21 degrees retrograde. Which was just opposed by Mercury. Over the weekend, we had that Mercury-Mars opposition that was probably devastating for some folks and probably just a major inconvenience for others. Most likely bringing up a lot of issues related to whatever houses we have Capricorn and Cancer in our charts. We do have a cradle formation in play right now between Mars, Uranus, Venus and Neptune, and Mercury. All of these third decan feminine planets, or feminine signs. I personally have a cradle in my natal chart with third decan feminine signs. So I am really in my feels lately, as the millennials say. We've got Sun in the first decan of Aquarius, just moving out of orb of a conjunction with Pluto, which is great for people who were very sensitive to that Sun-Pluto aspect, things related to power, authority figures, maybe fascist figures, people, great man, bombastic people, if that really disturbs you, as your Aquarian heart is disturbed by a very leonine figure. That was probably really drawn into drastic clarity over the past week while we had Sun transiting a conjunction with Pluto and Aquarius. But never fear, Sun is out of that conjunction. It is now just co-present with Pluto, so we're good. You got 5.41 acres upstate. I need to see it. The Venus-Saturn conjunction, we've moved away from a Venus-Saturn conjunction to a Venus-Neptune conjunction, which is extra dreamy, extra delusional, extra fanciful, and willing to think about, I don't know, lost continents that might have sunk to the bottom of the ocean. You might be in your Atlantis daydreaming mood with the co-presence of Saturn, Venus, and Neptune. Venus and Neptune being part of this big cradle with Mercury in Capricorn and Uranus in Taurus and Mars in Cancer, might have you fantasizing about ways to create your ideal future with your home life or future family or relationships to resources, kind of fantasizing about ways that you could secure a positive and healthy future for yourself financially and materially in this world, especially as you are being disturbed by aspects of more martial or like your relationship to material things has been changing since 2018 when Uranus came into Taurus anyway. But with that making a sextile to Mars and that making an opposition to Mercury, this is all feeling a lot more pressured. You're feeling a lot more pressured to shore up your resources, make sure that you can be accountable for your own safety. You might be being a little idealistic about or a little delusional about what could keep you safe. But it is nice to have those fantasies to calm you down at some point. I know that I feel like all I need is just land to build on and to build my own house, and I'm good. But that's not really the only thing that keeps me safe. The thing that keeps you safe is community, relationships with people, a safer world, living in a higher vibration for yourself, living in a better manner from every choice to choice, making the right choices, living in a world in which the right choices are made by your timeline so that you live in a world where the right choices are made by other timelines. You can't, manifestation doesn't just come from wishful thinking. It comes from wishful thinking and right action. Yeah. Starting to use ICF building and block wood radiant heat. What does that mean? What is ICF building? What do you mean by block wood radiant heat? Okay, I'm gonna go to I'm gonna close this part out and go to our readings. Making a solar battery. That's cool. Didn't get the pump working yet. Okay. Let's see. Let's do this. There we go. Okay. Okay, so let's go ahead and try to get a little bit of a read on our vibe weather right now. My selenite here. Hello. hello to this deck. I hope you're okay, doing well. What's our vibe for the day, Mr. Manifestation deck? Ooh, affirmation deck, I'm sorry. Don't want to shuffle very well today. You want to just chunk up. Just want to be cut. Okay, I get it. Cut my deck into pieces. This is my last resort. Okay, I can't take all of you. I would like one card, please. One card for the collective that will listen to this message. Okay. By visualizing my desired outcome, the perfect action is always inspired. Yeah, you can tell I didn't fix my white balance yet because you can't read the card very well. By visualizing my desired outcome, the perfect action is always inspired. And that's got a moon over moonflowers as the illustration there. And it says, as your desire to feel good leads you to thoughts that will feel good, the perfect action will be inspired from that alignment. And that inspired action is always joyful. So as you desire to feel good leads you to thoughts that will feel good, the perfect action will be inspired from that alignment. And that inspired action is always joyful. So you will find what makes you happy if you keep moving in ways that align with the thoughts that make you happy. Visualize the desired outcome and the perfect action will be inspired. You don't have to figure it all out before you move towards the desired outcome. You just have to start visualizing the desired outcome, and the right action will reveal itself by being in vibration, like being in resonant harmony with what you're feeling. Just getting the vibe that you're on the right track is going to help a lot more than trying to predetermine what the right track is before you start walking. At least in this realm. Let's see. Our labradorite, raw labradorite here goes with the, oh, where's my flash? There we go. There we go. There's the right angle. See that pretty labradorescence. Okay. Let's look for the, what do we have to say? Holographic tarot deck. What is going with, by visualizing my desired outcome, the perfect action is always inspired. What's the vibe weather with this today? Okay. The Knight of Wands. And I'm going to pull both of these because they jumped out. The Knight of Wands upright and the Justice card upright. So, the Knight of Wands. He came out the other day, so I'm going to look up a more proper definition because I must not have translated his message correctly if he keeps coming up. I also work with things that people are throwing out. That is one of my favorite things to do, is turn trash into treasure. I'm a good recycler. Okay, Knight of Wands keywords: energy, passion, inspired action, adventure, impulsiveness. He is sitting on a horse in full gallop, full tilt, running horse, with a yellow robe on, decorated with salamanders, and a helmet with fiery red plumes flowing behind him. He holds a sprouting wand in his hand, which symbolizes his energy and enthusiasm for the mission. His horse rises up on its hind legs, poised and ready for action. Like all the wand's court cards, the background is hot, dry, and barren, with mountains soaring in the distance. I love the bitty tarot definitions of cards. Knight of Wands shows the actual pursuit of the idea that was sparked with the Page of Wands' new idea. Charged up with energy, passion, motivation, and enthusiasm, you can channel that energy through your inspired action. You have a clear vision about how you want to create, and fueled by your passion and inspiration, you are moving forward with leaps and bounds to turn your vision into reality. This card is your sign to go for it. Be like a pioneer. Take calculated risks to reach new heights. Be fueled by the energy of adventure. Now, Justice is a slightly different card. It still has that cardinal energy. It has that fiery red and yellow illustrated in the card, but there is also a passivity implied by the sitting down action, the blue, and a balance between the upright sword and the downward facing arm holding the scales of justice. It implies balance, a justification, a orthogonal correcting, making things right again. Maybe the new idea that is coming out is something that is more just and fair. Some conversation that needs to be had, or action that needs to be taken to make things fair again, or just for you to feel validated or heard or something like that. You have felt slighted, or maybe you think somebody else has been slighted and you would like to fix that. So take that idea and run with it. Honestly, this is, I think, your sign from the universe that it is time to have that conversation, to give that verdict, to enact that justice, to do justice, to love justice, not just to do mercy and walk humbly, but also to love justice. Make sure that things are right and fair. Things are not always right and fair in this world. And if you have the opportunity to make them so, then it should be within your power. Okay, we're going to go to the liminal space now. And that is the smooth, polished ocean jasper here. This nice, pretty ocean jasper. Beautiful. Okay, let's see. Liminal space, what have you got for us with the Knight of Wands upright and Justice upright, as well as by visualizing my desired outcome, the perfect action is always inspired. Maybe the just action as well. Oh, there we go. Alrighty. Drink water and elevate have jumped out. 2 cards from 2 different decks today. Drink water is always a good one, and I've been drinking lots of water throughout this. Oh, you got to talk to the legislator. Ooh, about an appeal. Well, good luck. That sounds like justice. Let's see. Drink water is right next to elevate alphabetically in the book. How funny is that both of those popped out and they are right next to each other in the interpretation book. They're both commands too: drink water and elevate, which also could go together. When you drink water, you elevate. You elevate your vibration. Okay. Drink water says, since the dawn of this planet, water has held the highly esteemed role of sustaining all life. The saying goes, if you're looking for life, look for water. The human form is made up of about 60% water. When the body loses just 5% of its total water, negative and often painful effects begin to set in. On average, losing a rate of 2 to 3 liters of water per day, it doesn't take much for dehydration to start chipping away at the body on a cellular level. Chronic dehydration rates are at an all-time high, but remember, just because this thing is happening on a large scale does not mean it's normal. So please do yourself a favor and drink water. Your life literally depends on it. Always good advice. Always good advice to say drink water. Almost always not great advice if you've just been drinking water constantly for an hour straight. But if you are not overhydrated, drink water is always good advice. Okay. Elevate. There is no reason you should not make it all the way to the top. Let yourself dream the biggest dream you are capable of. It is inherent in the nature of all things to rise. Expect it, and the powers of manifestation will aid you in the cultivation of this upward intention. I do believe eventually what I would like to manifest is going to happen. I don't understand how, but I'm pretty sure that by visualizing my desired outcome, the perfect action is always inspired. Why not go all the way to the top? Why not? Why not take it all the way to the top? This goes all the way to the top. Okay. All right. Beautiful. Knight of Wands, justice, visualization, drink water, elevate. All great advice. These are advice cards today, not just vibe cards. Okay. Well, I'm still in love with my hair. I love how it turned out so much. I will be making a video about it soon. For now, this has been another episode of Today's Weather Tonight. I've been Cloud Hudson. You've been a great audience, and I love you all. I will see you tomorrow. Bye. Have a great night.